Greetings all. This is a tutorial about using the metronome in Cakewalk, the tempo map, how to input tempo changes into your piece, or how to record the click track if you want to send out your demo for example, for collaboration with other people online. You want to send out your demo, you need the click track embedded in the recording you send them. That way everybody's going to be on time and the same. So we're going to do some different things here to show you how to use some of the metronome tools. So first, we're going to start with the metronome settings. Right here, underneath your display, this is the tempo setting. Now you can click on that and type in any tempo you want. It's going to set the entire piece, the entire set of tracks to that tempo, all the way across. Now, which is good if you want one tempo. But let's say that let me set this to 90 here. Now let's say that we start at 90. Okay, let's say at measure 5 we want to change the tempo to something else. So let's say we want an abrupt tempo change at measure 5 to 120. Now if I set the transport to 120 and change this, again, it's not going to change it there. It's going to change the entire piece to 120. See, now it's at 120 at the beginning. Okay, I want the beginning at 90. And I want a tempo change at 5 of 120. So we can enter that in a couple of different ways. The easiest, quickest way is to go to Project, Insert Tempo Change, and then type in 120 here. Now, important, it says change the most recent tempo. Well, the most recent tempo currently is, excuse me, the beginning of the piece. So if I changed it, again, it would just change the beginning tempo. I want to insert new tempo at, and it's going to take wherever your transport is for this value. Now, if your transport is not where you want to put the tempo change, you can enter it manually here. So if I enter a 6, it's going to change the tempo at measure 6, beat 1. Okay, so now it should still be 90 through measure 5. There we go. And it changed to measure 6. It was the tempo change. I'm going to Control Z that because I really want the tempo change at measure 5. 120. Insert new tempo, 5-1. There we go. All right. Now that's where I want the tempo change. Let me change this to something so we don't have to listen to all those clicks. Okay. There we go. So that's how you enter a manual tempo change using the that insert tempo command. Okay. All right. Now we also have the tempo map, and I'm going to pull it up from the views here. Okay. So we want to view tempo. Alt-Shift-5 is the shortcut to it. Okay. Now we can see that tempo change we just added. Here it's set to 90, and then it jumps up to 120 here. We can zoom in the grid if we want to get a little bit more tight accuracy on things. And we can zoom out if we want to see the whole entire piece, all the different tempo changes and whatnot this way. Now, you can also draw in tempos this way if you would like. It's difficult because it's only as accurate as you can draw, so you do have some issues. Now, this will also respond to the snap settings you have going up here. There we go. Okay, you can see that measure 15, I drew in a tempo change for 4 quarter notes, and it drew in 4 quarter notes. Let me zoom in on that. Okay, so it's set here at 90. Goes up to 97. Okay, and again, we could, if it's not what we want, we can just go ahead and draw it again. And there we go, up to 120. So this is a way you can draw in your tempos. You can change the accuracy to more points if you want. Yeah, it's responding to that snap grid. So there are different ways of getting to the resolution that you want. The closer, the more dots you have, the more humid it would be as far as the gradual tempo change, but that's up to you. So there's a way of drawing in tempos. Now, of course, you see here it listed all those different tempo changes. Okay, so there should be 16 of them here in this list. Now, I don't like that. I can delete it from that list as well. So there's different places you can add. Now, I don't think you can add. You can't click and manually add one here, as far as I know. The only way to manually add one is, I believe, is using this project, insert tempo. But again, you can still edit the graph right here in the tempo map. So this is another way if you want to use this. If you're listening to a recording and you're trying to line up to that recording and get a click track from that recording, you can use this as one of those tools. There's another way of doing it using Audio Snap. And it just depends on which level of tedium do you want to use. Sometimes it's quicker to actually just adjust it with this drawing with the tempo map, and sometimes it's quicker to use the Audio Snap method, so it just depends on what you're doing. All right, so enough on the tempo map and inputting and changing tempos. So that's, of course, if you're doing it up front and you have a blank project, that's what you want to do. Now, let's say you want to record the metronome, because again, you're sending this out for other people to play along with. So let me set my grid to a more reasonable thing. Quarter note should be better. Okay. So if we look at the console view, because that's where the I gotta view the console. Yeah, so we can see that we have the two default tracks, the audio track and the MIDI track. The master track, this is what is going out to your sound card. The metronome typically goes to your sound card, whatever the default settings are. And then you have your preview, which can you can route it however you want. It's sent to the master. That's usually if you play back MIDI samples up here, or audio demo things that you have in your library. It usually comes through on that track, so that's what that's for in the mixer there. So if you want to record the Cakewalk metronome, which is fine, you can choose different settings. If you do P, brings up your settings, and down here under Advanced, you have to have Advanced. Let's see, metronome, under Project Metronome, you can select different sounds for the metronome if you want to change them. This is a little audio sampler, I think, within Cakewalk itself to give you that metronome click. And of course, you can reassign the output. If you reassign it here, it will change in that setting down there on the console. You'll notice that if you change it there. Or you can output using a MIDI note, and you could. I don't think you can hear it if you do that. Let's see. Yeah, it's not audible anymore. So if you want the audible metronome, you have to use the audio metronome. Okay. Apply. Close, and I should have my metronome back. Yes, there we go. Okay. So you want to record your metronome into a track over here, so it's part of the other tracks that you have. Okay. What is the easiest way to do that? So again, there are a couple different ways of routing your signals. This is one of the things I like patch points for. So I'm going to insert an audio track, okay, and I'm going to call that click. Oops. Have my caps lock on. Click. Okay. And now I want to route the signal from here into here. Okay. So now you can't route stuff, generally speaking, from the buses here into your tracks. It doesn't seem to like to do that. So I'm going to do a new patch point. Okay, and then over here for the input, I'm going to use the patch point. Okay, and now you can see the signal is reflecting here. And if I go to the beginning of the track and arm this track to record, and so on and so forth. And then let's take a look at that track there. Okay, and then we can see the audio data that it just recorded. I'm going to unarm that one, and I will mute the metronome altogether. So now the metronome is not playing back at all, either in playback or record mode, but I have the click track from here in the audio settings. So that is the quickest, easiest way that I know to send the click into a track. Use patch points, boom, you're done. Nice and easy. All right, let's say that for some reason you didn't like using the audio metronome from Cakewalk. You had a MIDI instrument you wanted to use instead. So you can still route your metronome into a VST. It's a little more complicated, obviously, but it's doable. So you can open up your preferences by doing P and set the metronome here. Instead of audio, use MIDI note. Now you can only choose one port, and then here are the different MIDI notes that you can send. So here you could program, and I think this is a closed hi-hat sound that it uses specifically. I prefer the wood blocks, which is like an E and an F way up in the 5th or 6th octave. But let's see, we'll just use this for now. Now, the other thing you have to do is you got to go to MIDI devices, and you have to enable some, you have to have some kind of internal MIDI routing. So I have the loopy MIDI thing installed on my computer, so I use that for my internal MIDI signal. That way I can send the signal into, it really goes out of Sonar into this virtual MIDI controller back into Sonar. That's the only way that I figured out how to do this. There may be another way, but there's seemingly no way to send the MIDI signal directly from the metronome into a VST in a track here. All right, so I still have the click track audio that I recorded earlier. Make sure that's muted. Yeah, okay. And we're going to add an instrument. Insert instrument. I'm going to just do the default TTS from Cakewalk. Okay. I had set it to record. Now I want to set, let's see, is it going? Yeah. So because I routed the MIDI and the input is set to Omni, here it's hearing that MIDI signal from the loopy MIDI, and I can record that this way. Okay. Now, what I just recorded was MIDI data. I didn't actually record a sound. I recorded the MIDI click, basically. So that's a quick way you can create a MIDI click if you want to do it that way. So this is just MIDI data. And then, let's see if I can turn off the internal metronome. Now, if I play back, well, let's see. I'm going to not record. That was interesting. I got some other MIDI junk going on in there for some reason. Not sure why. So I suppose you could have recorded both of those at the same time, but perhaps you decided, I don't like that MIDI note. I want to go into the MIDI track and change that to a wood block, which is... Oh, I need to be on channel 10 here. Let's see. Change that to channel 10 so it's on the drum track. Okay. Now. Okay. Yeah. That's what I like to use for my wood blocks. So I'm going to select all, and I'm going to... So if I delete that hi-hat I recorded earlier and replace that with that wood block. And so on. Okay, so there's a way of, again, using the internal tempo maps, the internal metronome settings you had to record with a VST. You could have plugged in any instrument VST this way, and it would still work. Now, let's see what happens if I play back both. Well, let me just pull that track down so that I'm surely not triggering anything else in there. So now it's its own separate file. And how do they line up together? How well? There's probably going to be some lag this way because I'm sending the signal out and back through. So there's probably a few milliseconds of lag. I don't know if it's going to be audible. So it seems pretty tight. It's another way to do it. And then the last way, of course, let me just delete this track, and I'm going to do all that from scratch. You could just actually just do your own MIDI track and make your own metronome clicks if you wanted to specifically. I've done this before with concert band pieces where I have mixed time signatures, everything from 7/8 to 7/16, just doing that to help out my band members with getting a practice track for them, because most metronomes are hard to program, and that one was specifically hard for that piece, so I just did a click track for everybody for the piece, and use various techniques of doing that with this method. So again, I'm just going to add an instrument. And again, I'll just use the TTS, but you could do this with any VST synth you wanted to. All right, I'm going to mute that. And then let's see. Now, I do have this routed. Let me reroute that so that it is audio metronome again. All right, so let's see. Yeah, and I'm going to use the drum track again, so I will set this to output on MIDI channel 10. Okay. Yeah, I like to do a high pitch wood block on the downbeat, and then a lower pitch wood block on the other beats. That's right, I used a patch point, so it's still going into track 1. I need to undo that. Let's send that back to the master. There we go. Okay. Record my click track manually. Again, this is difficult. Latency and stuff can actually make this more difficult. We can quantize this to quarter notes. Yeah. So again, that's just a quick way you can do that. You can actually just do one measure. Let me just delete. Oh, let me split this. Okay, split. Okay, and if I knew the piece had 100 measures in it, I could control copy, put that on measure 2. Now I had my snap to 1/4, so it should be exactly 1 measure long, and then I can do paste multiple, paste special, and let's say if we had 110 measures, I could paste that 109 times. Oh, it won't go past 100. Okay, well then there you go. So we'll have to paste it 100 times. And it's still here. And then just to do my last 9 measures here, I would have to paste it one more time, but you get the idea. Okay, so that's another way of just doing a manual MIDI metronome for yourself if you don't like the internal sounds of Cakewalk. All right, well, I hope this tutorial was helpful for you, and thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.